I had my children on the floor. I was on my favourite blanket that my grandmother gave me on the floor like a cat.
And I realised in that moment the potential of what our bodies can really do as women. Like I could feel his head, I could do my own internal, like, yeah, his head, I could feel it.
I was in tears, I was just in tears and overwhelmed with gratitude.
Hi and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast, the podcast that is bringing embodied birth wisdom from women from all over the world sharing their natural birth stories. Don't forget to subscribe and download so that you can always have access to these empowering and positive natural birth stories. Hi, my name is Anna and I am the Natural Birth Podcast host. I'm a former midwife who left the system and I'm now the proud founder of Sacred Birth International, a woman-owned company with a mission to revolutionize the birth world and bring focus to the sacred and the natural intelligence of the birth process. We do this by providing world-class education, courses, programs, and coaching to equip women with the knowledge and the tools to have conscious pregnancies, empowering and positive birth experiences, and the most nourishing start possible for themselves and their babies postpartum. We also educate and mentor aspiring birth workers into sacred space holders and physiological birth advocates in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, the Beyond a Doula training. If you'd like to work with me or take any of our courses, programs, or the mentorship, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to find out more. Hi, Jessica, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to have you here. It's going to be fabulous to hear yet another birth story from, I'm guessing, the UK where you're based.
Yeah, I'm in the UK. I'm in Dorset, so down the south of UK.
Beautiful. So take us back to becoming pregnant. Did you know how you wanted to birth, or was that a journey for you to decide on the pregnancy and birth journey you took?
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a journey. Didn't start straight away. I think it kind of all started probably about 4 years ago, around the sort of COVID time. And I think I was really just starting to explore how can I live a life sort of outside of the medical paradigm as best as I could. And I realized I'd sorted out my health. I'd like figure out all the kind of natural concepts of how to live a healthy lifestyle. And then I would always just be like, darn, like, why do I then have to go to a hospital to give birth? Like, I'm gonna want a baby soon. And like I was just so sort of like my heart thinking that I would have to be there to do that, but not for anything else in my life. So yeah, I explored, started listening to your podcast, and it's kind of wild that now I'm here, yeah, telling my story as well. But yeah, I mean, I started to explore and it just completely opened up a brand new door for me. I decided quite soon, right, yeah, I'm gonna have a home birth. After sort of further education and reading all the books, and I did a birth keeper course as well, so I can support other women. Yeah, I decided I'm just gonna do it all alone, basically, with my partner. So, first time mum, got pregnant, and I was just pregnant. Yeah, I didn't really sort of do too much. I knew straight away we'd planned it. We decided when we were going to do it on our anniversary. And I just went with the flow, really. A lot of people, it's quite interesting actually, because I did share with a lot of my friends how I would be doing things beforehand, and I think that was to just check reactions and sort of know, like, where do I need to put boundaries in place, like who's okay with what I'm doing and who do I actually have as like a full support system for me as well. And I did find really good support in my birth keeper education community. Obviously, everyone was sort of like-minded there. So finding that village and that community was just so sort of healing on my pregnancy journey as well. And then you sort of have a lot of people going, oh, okay, so when's your scan gonna be? And I didn't have any scans. So I had a wild pregnancy. Um, and yeah, I just went with the flow. I needed a proof of pregnancy just for any sort of, government things in terms of stat mat pay. So I spoke with a private midwife at 22 weeks. She came over, she was really lovely. And yeah, she just did a palpation. She tried to listen to the heartbeat with like a wooden pinard, but it was a bit too early for that. So she wrote out for me like a MAP B1 form, proof of pregnancy documentation. And it was actually really good to speak to someone, especially for my partner, because he was all on board for supporting me with whatever it is that I wanted to do, but he did have nerves. Um, he sort of knew he was going to be the only person there. Um, and he wouldn't really know sort of what cues or whether I was okay. These are the sorts of things he was worrying about. And this midwife was just totally, you're setting up the right environment. This goes right 99.9% of the time. In the way that, yeah, we've chosen to do it, and basically just talked her through some of the behaviors that I might be experiencing in labor and what to do and when the baby comes. But yeah, it was a bit challenging from my partner's perspective because of his family a little bit. We had to put a few boundaries in place. There was quite a lot of fear from that side of the family. Um, just thinking that I don't know enough and we should be in a hospital basically.
Right. Yeah. And what was the driving force to want to not have an independent private midwife? Was it the desire to just do it all alone, or was there kind of fear of interference, or what was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think there was a large number of reasons, but in the education that I'd learned in terms of physiological birth, I knew that anyone within my space, especially actually listening to the podcast that I've listened to, as soon as anyone enters your space, it can actually just completely affect the hormonal cocktail of things to allow the birth to happen. And I am so highly sensitive. And especially throughout pregnancy, I was highly sensitive.
Mm.
And I just had this fear of anything or anyone distracting me or interrupting my space or putting some form of fearful energy into the room. And I was even at the time thinking, do I even want my partner in the room? I said to him, I might even just want to close the door on you. I was trying to think of times in my life as a child when if I got fearful or if I was in pain, I would actually just sort of go to my room or close the door off and want to deal with it myself. And I thought maybe this will be how it will be for birth for me as well. I didn't know, but I'm a 10-minute drive away from the hospital, so I did have that aspect as well. I knew that if an emergency did come about, I can just go to the hospital. Hospitals are for emergencies, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does seem
Um,
to be close to hospital, having that kind of maybe potentially in your subconscious, knowing that it's not far away in case of something.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Love.
So it was quite a nice simple pregnancy. I mean, I got really sick in first trimester. I was so fatigued. It actually hit me with a huge amount of shock. I kind of just thought I was gonna rock it. I had like this perfectionist persona, and then all of a sudden that just crumbled, and I was in bed. I was so poorly, so fatigued, and it really just kind of cracked open my shell. Just like, whoa, all of this is happening, all the hormones, everything is actually changing from pregnancy. It's not like a huge blast of change and initiation at birth. It was happening from the moment I was sort of pregnant and working through all of that in like the first and second and third trimester. Was really beautiful actually.
Yeah, and I wish that, we have this view in modern society that obviously being pregnant doesn't mean that you're sick and you shouldn't be
Hmm.
treated as such, but you should be treated as special. You should be treated as, you are going through this life-changing event and pregnancy, like you're growing a new human being. Like we should
Hmm.
just worship the ground that a pregnant woman walks on. She should not have to work. She should be provided for, in my opinion. I just think it shouldn't start at birth that, okay, now you're going on maternity leave and now you get some sort of support potentially, hopefully in your country or, in your situation, wherever you are. It should really start from that, you can see. I think it's crazy that we're quote unquote supposed to pretend we're not pregnant for the first trimester, continue to work. Most people don't even tell their bosses or employers or whatever, right? Keep it secret because, of course, it is a higher likelihood in that first trimester to potentially lose that baby, right? And so that's where it comes from. But that's usually when people feel the most sick, with nausea or with just absolute fatigue and all of these things. And really, I wish we lived in a world where you could say, as soon as you know you were pregnant, I'm pregnant, now I need to follow my flow. And for some women, that is to work and that is to be, they're not that affected, but most have some sort of morning sickness and, definitely the tiredness, and you're growing a human being in your body. I mean, seriously, how can we not acknowledge this for the absolute miracle it is and honor women and just care for them collectively? Why?
Anna, I could not agree with you more. I was so lucky because I run my own business and it kind of just done its own thing. I was able to be hands off with it and I had a really good team. So I wasn't actually really working apart from a bit of admin. And I was just lying in bed. I would be done. I would be so tired by sort of 1, 2 in the afternoon and be in bed. And I was just thinking, how are women doing this? Like, how are women working? And one of my friends, like you said, she would be driving to work, like having to stop the car, throw up on the side of the road. And she was not telling, like, no one at work knew what was happening. And I'm like, how are women doing this? I mean, especially in third trimester, sort of working until 37, 38 weeks pregnant. It's just, it's wild.
That is just first of all, so it breaks my heart, and there's so much with how things are done today in maternity, just generally for women. I mean, starting really with our periods and just the medication and everything. But anyways, it just hurts my heart. It's so undignified having to stop and vomit on the side of the road because we can't be acknowledged for the amazing work we're doing, this beautiful sacrifice, which is a sacred gift. That's what sacrifice means, and it should be treated as a sacred gift. We should be treated as a sacred gift as we go through it, and not have to hide or work in this way. No. It does hurt my heart actually.
Yeah, and I remember sort of knowing I was pregnant and just telling people immediately. I was probably only sort of 2 to 4 weeks pregnant, and I just knew.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, you're telling people, really early. Like, don't you want to wait?" Because there's sort of this just cultural way of thinking that it's not safe to tell people until, your first scan, maybe at like 12 weeks or so. And people would sort of say, be careful, but I was just living my life the way I wanted to live it. And it put me to one side and think like, oh, like, am I okay? Am I really vulnerable right now? Like, am I saying things too soon? Like, but it's the way the culture is.
Yeah, and it also comes from, I guess, the generations before us that didn't talk of such things. I mean, they didn't talk of such things about anything, right?
Mhm.
Sex or menstruation or just absolutely anything. We don't talk about things, right? That's been our kind of our mothers, our grandmothers' culture, and probably before that as well for a long time. And it comes from also like, well, then you're putting it out there, and then what if you lose the baby? Then you're gonna make other people feel bad for you. It's almost
Yeah.
that, like, don't tell people, because then, like, what if you lose, and like then you should carry that grief on your own. No, why?
And have zero support from anyone
Zero
because no
support.
one knew. Yeah. Sad.
Yes, it's
I think
so backwards. It's so wrong.
I feel in a way lucky that, well, I was very lucky that I put myself in a situation where I could just be pregnant, and enjoy the full 9 months of pregnancy. And I think that also very much helped with sinking into my own body. And maybe that's why I enhanced the symptoms more, because I was so sort of in it. Whereas I guess a lot of women might be a bit more distracted and sort of working and doing more, whereas I was just very in it. But I wanted that because I wanted to use my full intuition to be able to tap in and know whether I was okay myself, especially because we were choosing to not have any scans. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So did you choose to do absolutely nothing, like no blood test, no nothing at all, not just the scans, but just nothing at all, totally wild?
No, yeah, totally wild. So there's like no record of me being pregnant on my NHS, not like number at all.
Only the proof of pregnancy from the midwife that one time.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, I mean, I'll mention it at the end, but we did have a private midwife come on the second day after the birth just to check the
Oh,
baby as well. So yeah.
yeah, beautiful. So yeah, let's dive on into, if you feel ready to talk about your birth, I'd love to hear, did you have any early signs of labor approaching for you?
Yeah, so I had zero signs. I was definitely really prepared. I'd like set up an environment. I'd moved house in that time. I knew sort of I had an idea of where I wanted to give birth, and I also understood the importance of postpartum and nourishment. And I had made so many meals boxed up in the freezer ready, playlist. I'd wrote my partner Matty a to-do list, like once I'm in labor, shut the curtains, like put the fairy lights on, and just wrote out everything. Um, so I was very prepared, and this would have been in October last year, 2024. So I was 36 weeks pregnant, and it was the weekend, and my birthday was the weekend after, so it would have been on the 19th of October, and this was the 11th of October. And I had some family come down to just see me before my birthday. So we went out for a meal, which was really beautiful. They stayed the night, and then they left that morning. And I just felt really, really good that morning. I had loads of energy. And I was like, I'm gonna go see some more family. So I went and saw my auntie and my cousins, and they even sort of said, your baby's not dropped at all. Like your bump is so, so high. And I was like, yeah, I know. I think I've still got like a month and a half to go. So I was 36 weeks pregnant, and I just thought I'm gonna expect the longest period of time. My nan had my mum at almost 44 weeks. So I was just like, I'll put my brain over there, and then I can't get impatient, and I'll just expect a really long birth, basically, and a long pregnancy. Um, so I got home, this was Sunday after seeing my family, and got into bed. And I was just like, oh, I just had this feeling of like, I've done everything. Like, I've seen everyone, I've done everything. I feel really good, I'm prepared. And just cuddled my partner in bed. And then I just felt this leak come out. And I was like, um, and then it did it again. And I was like, whoa, and like stood up. And I realized that a little bit of water had trickled out. And I was like, I'm 36 weeks pregnant. This can't be happening now. Like I was so confused. And I went to the toilet, sort of came back, and my partner Matty was just looking at me like, so what do we do? And I was like, well, we just go to bed. we just sleep. So nothing else had happened, and I was very much just kind of like, okay, my waters have leaked. Still might not be
Yeah.
labor yet. We'll see. But I remember getting into bed and just getting this like spike of adrenaline. I think it shocked me a little bit, and I was kind of like leg shaking, like, oh, I need to calm down. Like, what's going on? It's literally just a little bit of water.
Mm.
Um, and then I noticed these sort of like period like waves, pains coming on. So I started to get that sort of feeling that you would get when you're sort of on your period.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, something is happening, but I also decided to ignore it. And I thought if I'm going to have a long labor, or if I'm now going to be experiencing this for a whole week, I just need to sleep as much as possible.
Yeah.
So went straight into bed and managed to sleep the whole entire night. I noticed that I was getting some kind of waves, but I was just kind of ignoring them. It just felt like period pains, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, most women,
Um,
when their waters break, it usually will start within 24 hours. And I'm curious though, so when you say 36 weeks, have you counted like the traditional kind of modern way with the Neagle's rule, or do you count from conception, or do you add those 2 weeks like from the first menstrual day? Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? Yeah.
I did it from the first day of my menstrual cycle.
Right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you were really early.
Yeah, so based on that, my due date would have been, I think, the 7th or 8th of November. And I was just basically telling everyone I was going to be due end of November, start of December. So no one was expecting anything. And I was telling everyone I was going to be so much later than I knew I was as well. And I think that was to allow me some space
Yeah.
and time in that area for boundaries as well. So at this point, I was 36 weeks and 2 days when my waters leaked. And I woke up that morning and just got straight in the bath, and just soaked for a bit. And I noticed then that my mucus plug was going as well. So I started to release this really clear, gooey mucus. And I was like, wow, okay. And I still just had like slight sort of waves. And things just start to go really weird with time. I I think I was high on the hormones, in all honesty. I still just decided to ignore it. I said to Matty, like, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. I'm just gonna rest. So I sat on the sofa. I had like a sausage sandwich. I was eating as much as possible, drinking loads. And Matty was like, I'm just gonna prepare the birth pool just in case. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. And he went to Tesco as well and got me sort of bits that I'd requested. And when he got back, I'd made myself a really nice, like, electrolyte smoothie with watermelon, ginger, sort of salts. And it was just so, so tasty with coconut water as well. And yeah, I just sat on the sofa. I spoke to a friend at midday at like 12 o'clock. And when I was speaking to her, I was even just saying to her, like, I'm not creating drama about this. Like, I'm not going to start anticipating too much. And even on the phone call, I was getting waves and I was just ignoring them. And it got to the afternoon and I could just feel it starting to pick up. It's turned more into quite like a sort of real achy wave in like my back, and I would kind of go and like sort of sway on this sofa, just sort of like this a little bit. And I realized I started writing notes on my phone, and by about 5 p.m. I just couldn't even look at my phone anymore. I was just like, oh, get that away. Like, it's getting intense now. And I remember sort of just kneeling on my sofa with my hands like this on the armchair, just kind of going, oh, when one would come. And my partner Matty was just in the office. He didn't really know any of this was happening. I just let him get on with work. And then I realized, okay, that was a really intense one actually. And I went into his office and I just said, yeah, it's starting to get like really intense now. And as I was saying it, another one came on. And then I was like, oh, so how long was that? And Matty was like, yeah, that was 2 minutes. And I was like, oh, like now I am in labor. And it was that kind of switch. It was only at that point that I went, oh yeah, I'm having contractions. I'm gonna have a baby. So I think it was starting to get a bit dark at this point. It was sort of 7 p.m. and I decided to jump back into the bath. And I didn't put the lights on and I just laid in the bath and I was playing with the sensations of the waves in my head and sort of, can I surrender to this? Like, can I really just like release every sort of muscle in my body when this happens and really try to just surrender to the sensations? And I was turning like from one side to the other side in the bath because the warm water on my belly just felt so nice. And I just nearly started falling asleep in the bath. And then it was like a wave would come and sort of slightly wake me up. And then I would just almost fall back to sleep again. And it was just this most surreal feeling. I was just so high and so sort of in this mystical, not really part of my body. Yeah, it was amazing. And anyway, I got out of the bath and I think I tried to dry my hair or something, but at this point it really started to pick up. And I remember just going onto my sort of hands and knees by the side of the bed. And when a wave would come, I would just really sort of moan and groan and just try to like handle it. And the thing that saved me the most on those waves was my partner. He would just see that one was coming on and see me sort of go a bit like, oh no, like, oh. And he would just so calmly come over and just place his hand on my back with the most lightest touch. And it just like centered me every time. It just really grounded me and made me feel like, oh, okay. And then I would rest, and another one would come, and he would do the same thing again, and he would just keep doing it. So when one wasn't happening, I would rest, and he would quickly go and do something for me, set up more of the birth pool, and then immediately just come back, place his hand on me. And I noticed that my like knees were starting to get a bit achy, and I was just very sort of intense. And I always wanted to have a sort of earth grounded birth. I always imagined it would be on my bed, and I wouldn't really want the birth pool. But Matty was like, there's padding this sort of thick, it's a blow up one. And he was like, you might quite like it on your knees. And I was like, yeah, anything at this point. Let's just get in the birth pool. And what was weird is I wanted a grounded birth on without water. And I was just attracted to water constantly, a bath in the morning, a bath that evening, and now I'm getting into a birth pool. So I like jumped in and it was too hot. And I remember it sort of like going, oh, and then like the sensations like intensifying even more. And I just thought, oh, good. Like the birth pool's working. Because I've had so many times that, it slowed labours down when people sort of get comfortable in it. And Matty added more cold water in for me. But from that point onwards, I just basically stayed in the birth pool, and it was about 10 p.m. at this point. The birth pool was in my conservatory, which is off of my bedroom. And Matty basically just sat on the bed and could see me. And I was just birthing on my knees like this on the birth pool. Yeah, for quite some time, I think, on my own. And I was really sort of playing with the sensation, seeing if there was anything I could do to kind of ease it. I remember one of my sort of affirmations I wrote, I put, can I play? And I was like, okay, let's see if I can play. And I tried a few times and I was like, absolutely not. This is so intense. Absolutely not.
I
But
love that though. I love that that was one of your affirmations. I haven't heard anyone actually have like, can I play? And what a beautiful invitation. And maybe in earlier stages, that's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember trying to create a bit of humor, and I even said to Matty, like, oh, so what time do you think the baby's coming? And he was like, 4 a.m. And I just laughed and was like, no, next day, afternoon. But I think that was me trying to sort of mentally prepare for the endurance that I was going to need. Like I just thought if I just keep pushing this away, I can just focus on now and not get too in my head about what I was going through, basically. Um, so I thought I was really loud and it felt so intense inside, but apparently I was making zero noise. And Matty fell asleep on me, basically, and I just heard him start snoring. So at this point, I'm in a conservatory with no lights. It's pitch black. There's no electric in there. And he'd basically just run an extension cable and put my salt lamp on in there. So it's so dark, I couldn't see anything. Um, and I just could hear him snoring, and the birth pool, the water started to get cold. I started to get thirsty because he kept sort of handing me that drink that I'd made, and I was just sipping that constantly. It was one of his to-do lists. I said constantly hydrate me the whole entire labour. So I had to like shout him, and I was like trying to wake him up, and I just couldn't. He was soundo. I could not get him to wake up, and I was yelling
Oh my
as
God, Ben.
loud. I know, like what? And I like he was worried. He was going to be worried, and he's just snoring. And it was
Some of them can just sleep through absolutely anything, like a nuclear blast, and then just like,
that was what he was like. And it was like 11, 12 o'clock. Like he's not had a long night. He's not had to do anything hard. It's funny because when he eventually woke up in such a panic, he just immediately went over and like stood at the doorway, and he then did not move from that doorway the whole entire rest of the labour. And I even was like, you can get a chair, because he was just stood over me, and he was like, no. He just stood like this. He was like, I'm not falling back to sleep again. Um, but there was a shift then, and I don't know whether it was like the fear of not being able to wake him up, or whether maybe it was just a shift or transition that happened both at the same time. But I just started uncontrollably pushing. There was like this immediate, all of a sudden, the contractions changed from this sort of like electric in the back feeling. Oh, I had constant pressure on my bum, like so much pressure on my bum. But then all of a sudden it was just these like crunches in my tummy, and I was and I had no control over these pushes, and my legs would sort of like come up like this, and I was just bearing down with each push. And I was like, oh my gosh, if it's going to be like this, it's only going to be another 2 hours, I reckon. And I was checking myself in between to sort of see where I actually was, because I was so confused at that point why I was pushing, but it felt like nothing was there. And at the start, I couldn't feel anything. Like I could feel my cervix, but it wasn't open. I could just feel that my cervix was there with a finger. And I was like, okay. And I just kept pushing for about another hour. And then I felt my cervix sort of coming down. And then all of a sudden, just this like slit of like loads of hair coming out of this like little opening. So I knew it was her head, and I just remember getting so excited and being like, Matty, I can feel the hair. There's so much hair. I can feel the head. It's coming. It was just so cool. Um, I was like very aware of everything at that point. I sort of switched from being very inwards to just being able to chat and like talk. And I was like talking Matty through everything that was happening with me, what was going on. And I wasn't ever sort of like fearful either. I was just exhausted because these pushing contractions were so sort of tiring, and I just had no control of them. But yeah, I mean, I basically just carried on like that. And I remember just getting to a point where I was like, I need to feel the ring of fire now. I'm so exhausted. Like, I need to know this is going to be over soon. And eventually it happened. And I was at this point sort of on my back. I think because the pressure felt really strong on my like clitoris at the front when I was on my knees, so I kind of switched, so it was more sort of downwards, if that makes sense. And I felt her head come, and I was like, okay, it's right there. Like, can you see it? And I said to Matty, and he was like, no, because it was pitch black. He couldn't see anything. And I tried to like, I wanted to slow it down at this point because I wanted to reduce my chances of tearing. Um, but I had no control. The head just like popped out, and I was like, oh, okay, the head's like come out. I've done it. And I turned back onto my knees. And there was just this long pause with her head out, and it was about 6.5 minutes because I videoed it. I don't know, you're so confused about time at that point, but I had no contraction in that time. And I remember just feeling like her moving and starting to turn and twist. And I thought it was Matty touching me. And I even said to him, like, don't touch me, don't touch me. And he was like, I'm not anywhere near you. And I was like, oh my God, like she's turning. This is like what I've learned about. This is what I see in videos, them sort of starting to shift. But I just remember this like pause being just this incredible like integration period where I'd gone from labor to like just preparing myself ready to scoop my baby up. Like I've done it, and I'm just waiting to meet this baby. And one contraction and she just like shot out after that. And I scooped her up, and she sort of had a cord sort of here. I couldn't quite see. Moved her cord out the way and just, yeah, put her on my chest. At this point, we didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl, and it was so dark still, so we didn't know. And even Matty was kind of like, oh, well done, Jess. Like, you've smashed it. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? And I was like, I don't know. I can't see. And I was just like holding her, and she was just so tiny. And oh my God, just like, whoa, this is my baby. And she was all pale. She had like all this vernix over her. And she was just trying to sort of obviously establish breathing. She had loads of sort of gunk all over her face, so I was helping her sort of wipe it off. And this went on actually for quite a long time. It can take quite a while, I think, for babies sort of to naturally just get their breath properly. So she was sort of doing this for actually over 5 minutes, I would say. And I even at one point just used my mouth and just kind of like lightly sucked some of the goop out of her nose and her mouth, and then she let off a really big cry. But that was the only point Matty seemed a little bit concerned, because he just hadn't really seen that before, and sort of watching a baby trying to sort of come together and just like gather themselves and learn to breathe. Yeah, from his perspective, it looked a bit like, oh, is everything okay? But I just knew, I knew she was fine. You know, she was still attached to the cord, and it was just really beautiful, sort of, yeah, watching her learn how to be earthside, basically.
Yeah. Did you feel the cord when she was still attached and not breathing properly? Did you feel that it was pulsating and like?
I couldn't really see anything. I just knew it was there and it was warm.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I couldn't really see it or anything to know if it was.
Yeah, yeah. For anyone listening, you can just touch the cord and you'll feel the pulsation of the cord. It's quite strong actually when it's pulsating, and that gives you an idea as well if the placenta is still attached, which most placentas will stay attached for some time after birth to give the baby that time to transition and giving all that, oxygen and all of that beauty. So that's one way you can feel, just to in case your baby is struggling. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful lifeline. Now some placentas actually do like detach instantaneously after the birth of the baby, so in that case it actually doesn't help. So it can be a good thing, especially if you're free birthing, just to know that I think
Yeah.
is a thing to check.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, she was here, and she was 36 weeks, and it would have been 4 days. It was 2:30 a.m. in the morning. So she was super early as well. She weighed 6 pounds 8, which is totally average.
Yeah, I'm so bad with pounds because I'm all kilos. So
Oh,
I'm not exactly sure how much that is, but I mean, it's on the smaller end, but that's, I think that's still in the normal range. But
I'm
I
probably
can't say actually because yeah, pounds is not my, my
okay. So 3.8, no, 3 pound, 3 kilograms basically.
yeah, 3 kilograms. Yeah, so on the smaller side of, but yeah, if you're 36 weeks, you would be, because those babies are born like at 42 weeks. They've had so many more weeks to put on, especially that fat, the extra fat that babies put on
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah, she was so sweet. She had so much hair, like just covering almost like her whole body. Um, and it was kind of as soon as she started to like establish and was breathing all fine and happy, I immediately started feeling like a wave again, like contractions, and I was like, oh, and I felt so uncomfortable. And I was just like, I need to get out the pool. I need to get out the pool. And I just knew it was like my placenta, like starting to want to contract. So I got out the pool and sat on the bed. I mean, Matty wrapped us up in towels and blankets and got us all warm. And I just wanted to establish like a latch with her before getting the placenta out as well. So yeah, we laid on bed for a bit, for a while, and we were just discovering each other. And then I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, I need to get this placenta out. But this was a really complicated situation actually, and it took me 6.5 hours to get the placenta out, which I was not expecting. Um, so at first I had her attached still, and I was sort of holding her and having her latched and sort of kneeling at the side of my bed and trying to sort of pull it out. And I was trying everything, and I could feel it had dropped because there was like this heaviness on my cervix. Like I could just feel it was there, but my stomach was like really hard still, and like really sort of painful and like electric. Um, with like each sort of wave. And I was sort of doing mini coughs, mini like pulls, with like a little twist. And I was trying to sort of, and then I thought, right, I'll sit on the toilet and I'll try sitting on the toilet and get it out as well. And that wasn't working either. So I was like, okay, I'll just lay in bed for a little bit longer with my baby. But I just felt too uncomfortable. So I said to Matty, I want to cut the cord because I'm finding it really hard to hold her and like do all of this. And there's like blood, like it's messy sort of thing. So we cut the cord and she fell asleep on Matty. And I basically just spent the whole rest of the early morning just trying to get this placenta out. I went back in the bath. Yeah, I remember thinking like, oh, maybe my bladder is full and in the way. And so I laid on the bed and I had pads underneath me and I just released my bladder and still nothing. And I got to a point where I was just like, I want to connect with my baby. I'm not feeling good right now. And I was just like, is there twins? Like I was so confused. I was like, is there a second baby? Like I don't understand why my stomach is still so hard and like why this is so difficult. Obviously I hadn't had scans, so I didn't know. So anyway, I basically got my finger and I followed my finger up the cord just to the top of my cervix, and I could just feel this like a veiny, huge placenta just sat there. And the only way I can describe this is it felt like a suction plug. Like it just felt like sat on the top of my cervix and it was just too big and like suction to be able to like pull it out. So I basically got my finger and put it up one side. I did this so lightly. This wasn't painful. I was completely in control and I was just exploring basically. And I just pushed my placenta like this just to what away to try and sort of create a bit of a release. But what happened was loads of amniotic fluid just started shooting out of me. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like basically none of my amniotic fluid had actually left the sac. And it was all still just up there, like loads of amniotic fluid, a placenta, and then my cervix, basically. And I was like, I've never heard of this before, but it felt so good releasing all this water. And I went through like 3 towels worth of water trying to get all of it out. It was insane. You could just hear it like pouring out like a tap with my finger in there when I was pushing on it. And I basically, it got to sort of 7 a.m. and I called two of my friends, which were previously midwives in the system, and I said, "Hey, have you heard of this before? Like, out of all the education and everything I've done, I've never heard of this before." And they were just like, "No, like we've heard of like, she said a placenta being like really forced out and it just creates this huge like whoosh of like at the same time. So maybe that could have been it. But obviously in a hospital they would never allow a placenta to sort of stay in for as long as this. So they just never heard of anything like this before. And they were like, "You sound good, you sound fine. Just continue to do what you're doing, basically." So I continued for like another hour. And eventually I just felt the placenta sort of go from large to sort of like saggy, and it just started to drop a bit. And then I was like, yes. And I just gave it a little pull and it just like swooshed out and it was so heavy. And I landed it in my hands and I was like, "Whoa, Matty." And I like shouted him and I was like, "Quick, grab me a pan." And there was just like all this water and blood just went like all over the bathroom floor. And I just caught it and I was like, that was the best feeling out of all of this, was getting that placenta out, basically. And I was just like amazed how big and heavy this thing was.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That is an incredible story. I've
yeah,
never heard that. Definitely that, the placenta, which is one of the kind of fears of letting it sit in too long, is that there's a lot of blood collection behind it, obviously, as time goes on,
yeah.
and the uterus can't contract down and release it. But I've never heard about amniotic fluid as you describe. Holy smokes. How did you
Yeah.
feel when the placenta came out? And did you have a lot of blood loss as well, or how was that?
Yeah, so this is the thing. I mean, I wasn't actually um basing how I was on what it looked like. I was more just like totally like, how am I feeling? And I knew I felt so fine. Like I didn't feel dizzy at all. Um yeah, I mean, I felt exhausted. I mean, I've just, including the percentage, done like 35-hour labor, but I knew I felt fine, and I think it would have been really hard to establish how much blood there actually was because of it being mixed with the amniotic fluid so much. But when I was releasing it on the towels, it was just clear. There wasn't,
Wow.
yeah, it was literally just clear water sort of coming out. And it wasn't until the placenta then came out that there was just so much blood,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I basically just popped that straight in a pan. Like I was so obsessed with placentas throughout my education and I've always loved them. I just think they're so beautiful and I was trying to work out what I want to do with it. But once this had come out of me, I was like, get it away from me. Like I do not want to see this. I just want to be with my baby, basically. So it stayed in the freezer for a whole month. And then eventually two of my friends came down and we buried it in the forest together. But yeah.
Wow, yeah. You learn something new every day. I love that. That's what I love about birth. It's just you're this constant student of birth. Each birth is bringing some new wisdom. So thank you for sharing this story. That was very unique and different and definitely new for me to hear. So wow.
Yeah.
And you're right, when it comes to blood loss, it's not about the amount, it's about the holistic, situation. How are you feeling? And um some women can barely lose anything and they feel faint and
Yeah.
lightheaded and really affected by blood loss. And some can lose quite a lot and be so robust and feel, it's very much your constitution and like, what are you before pregnancy too? Like, do you have low blood pressure or high? I mean, I'm quite low in my blood pressure. I've always been. So I'm quite, easily faint, whereas someone else, is not. So you have to know yourself when it comes to that as well, and just really listen to yourself and how you feel. It's not the amount for sure. It's about how you react to that loss, and also to realize that you can lose very little and still feel very affected by it. It's also different who we are.
Yeah, exactly. And I really was sort of on it with the nutrition, especially even throughout labor, but also straight afterwards, I was on all of the like, rich, nourishing foods and hydrating myself as much as possible. Um, but yeah, I mean, I never had any causes for concern in terms of a potential abruption. I didn't have any sort of real sort of shooting pains or anything like that. I knew it was fine. I was just like, why can't I get this placenta out? And I've heard of people in the sort of free birth community that have even not got the placenta out after a day or like 2 days. But I just felt so uncomfortable, and I was like, I need this out. So I was spending the whole time just trying to work out how to do that basically.
Yeah. Each to their own. I don't think it's, birth is truly not finished until you birth the placenta. And
Exactly.
I do feel like there is this, I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert in the free births, community, but there seems to be a pattern that it's more common that it takes time for the placenta to come. And I think it's because this is just my own thoughts around it, that not everyone has this true understanding that birth is not over when the baby's out, right?
Mhm.
It's when the
Mhm.
placenta is born. You're still in the portal of birth,
Yeah,
right? And actually, it is where we're most vulnerable, both babies, of course, but also especially women, is that in between space of baby and placenta to be birthed. And it's even more important if you're doing it on your own, of course, to really recognize that. And um, yeah, there
yeah,
is something there that, and I've heard it so many times with free birthing stories, that there's something with the placenta, sometimes a missing link of kind of somehow the completion of birth, and that a lot of also free birthing mamas will transfer after the birth of the baby because of the placenta. So I just really want to bring this to like awareness. Not that something, because your story is very different and special and very interesting, but just in general, right? That there's this thing that if you are planning, who's listening, a free birth, like really having a full understanding of the birth of the placenta, and yeah.
I completely agree with that. I even wrote in like my notes to Matty, once the baby's born, don't start turning lights on. Like I need the same environment in order to like build the oxytocin up to get the placenta out. And I remember sort of trying all the things, like smelling the baby, getting the baby to latch, and trying to do all those things to try and get it out. But it's also when we get the highest sort of spike of oxytocin, isn't it? Once the placenta's out as well. So I just wanted it out.
Yeah, well, of course, and it should come out, and it should come out fairly quickly after birth. Shouldn't be like a day, like that's very abnormal. So
Mm.
like it's I think it's a lot to handle when you're like choosing to free birth, as it is such a responsibility that um obviously a birthing woman is the most powerful, but also the most vulnerable person in the world, that she's birthing a baby. And we've
Yeah,
always traditionally always had, wise women around us, sisters, people to support us through that. And it is a lot to ask from one little woman to also be like having this newborn baby, and then also like taking responsibility now to, I need to birth the placenta, I need to think about this. And it does bring you into the neocortex, potentially also
definitely.
interrupting the hormones. And so it's interesting, the thought about anyone coming into your space is obviously going to affect your hormones, your physiology, your birth, but also your internal landscape, your own mind. I mean, our mind is the most powerful thing in birth, not our bodies in a sense, like our mind, right? So it's also that like navigation of, like, for some it is the right thing to free birth totally alone, but for some they recognize potentially that their minds potentially interfere more so than maybe a person sitting in the kitchen being quiet who has some sort of, birthing knowledge.
So
You know what I mean? And it's important, and I'm not saying it with you, I'm just saying general, like it's so important just to like ask yourself what truly is going to serve me. And I think there's also some women that like it's a gift to receive support.
yeah,
It's the loving
yeah,
feminine support, and to gift yourself that too. Not like you don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to be this independent,
yeah.
tough woman doing all alone. You can still have that fully, claiming your birth, also receiving. Just that
Yeah.
navigation, I think, is important as you're considering free birthing and knowing,
I
why.
completely agree. I think if I was when I have another one, I would want someone there. And I think now I have built connections enough to know who I truly love and who loves me, and who would witness me in the right way.
Yeah.
But that was something I was still discovering throughout this whole journey with pregnancy. And there is an element of me that's really had to crumble and break down throughout motherhood. And like it's the perfectionism and it's the independence. And I'm really now, only now, especially having a daughter, just starting to learn how to actually trust like women.
Yeah.
I think um, that's something I've always struggled with throughout school, throughout friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Thank you so much for bringing that, because that is such a big key. In the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, my mentorship for women who want to work in the birth world, the first week we just, we dive on into her story and the sisterhood wound.
mhm,
And as birth workers, like, I believe it's so important to like really look at your own relationship to women, your own relationship, understanding that you do carry, through epigenetics and transgenerational trauma, your lineage of women, which goes back to the witch burnings and trial. Like we carry the witch wound. Um, there's so much around this, and when it comes to birth work, it's very alive. You know, both
yeah,
being midwives, being birth workers inside or outside the system, just in maternity care, all of this, it lives very, very alive. The sisterhood wound and the witch wound and her story really affecting us. And and of course, the thing is, we birth the way we live, we birth the way we are in that moment in time, and we also, need to go through things to, understand things deeper and grow, whatever. And there's no right and wrong in anything. Everyone has to have the birth that they need in that time to open, and maybe it's in postpartum, maybe it's in pregnancy, throughout the continuum. Um, and I do see that. I think that that plays a role in choosing to fully birth alone. I invite anyone who wants to do that just to check in. Is there a sisterhood wound? Is there a lack
yeah,
of, mistrust in women? And like, see, can you start to heal that in pregnancy to maybe that you
yeah,
can invite someone? And then we have the problem that, especially when you're a highly sensitive woman, and I truly, truly empathize here. And this is the thing, isn't it? You might not feel like you'd actually truly trust anyone in your space that you,
yeah. Which is wild, right? How crazy that we're in a society now.
yeah,
I mean, well, I wouldn't trust a hospital to know what I want. And they're the professionals, right? So then when you start turning to actual real women that you're close to within your circle, um, there's also a lot of fear. There's so much fear around birth. So, I mean, I would say one of the most important things is finding like your village of women and like
yeah,
making sure you have that support. And I did have women that I had like on a list to Matty, and I said, look, if I need anyone, this is who you call, but you're not calling anyone else other than these people sort of first. So I did have people there, but then, there's also the element of I don't want to bother anyone.
mm,
Like, why would I not be able to do this by myself? It's a bodily function, like, stop getting in my head. But that's just me not actually just surrendering and accepting the
mm,
fact that support and love and someone being able to truly hold your space is just everything. And it even shows in the aspect of how even just having Matty touch my back like that grounded energy, like it changed everything for me in that moment, having him there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And I just really want to invite this notion because we are like, just with our modern day mindset, we are taught to be so self-sufficient, and we're little islands and we're not supposed to. We were never supposed to. Like, we are pack animals, just like most, and yeah, like we need to return to that more, and we need to heal that which has been severed, and especially woman to woman. So important. And it starts with us, yeah. And it's so
Yeah.
deep, and it's most likely not even ours. And when we also understand it like that, it's most likely not even ours. We have inherited this, just like epigenetics, programs us with all other ways. Like, it has programmed us for thousands of years. And for thousands of years, women, it hasn't been safe to be a woman. So we've had to resort to all kinds of devious things, and also manipulation, and definitely not trusting other women. Hasn't been safe to trust anyone for a long time.
Hmm.
Right? Even just going back to our mother and grandmother, like, we don't talk about that we're pregnant. We don't talk about these things. Like, we need to start doing different. It needs to be our choice.
Yeah. I mean, my mum was supportive of my choices, but um she asked to be at my birth and I was like, no. Like, no, I don't. And actually, how sad is that?
Yeah.
Like, that is sad that in this day and age we don't have those connections with even just our close lineage, for them to be able to actually be the wise women. Like, she's experienced this before. She could
Yeah.
have, provided such a beautiful space, and yet we're wounded to allow that to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, that touches my heart. Just giving that a minute. Yeah, it is sad.
Yeah.
I think many women who listen to this right now feels exactly the same.
Yeah.
And we really miss that deeply.
But what's so beautiful is that there is this thing happening right now where women are just getting this like fire in their belly and just being like, let's do this, like, let's all come together, let's get our sisters together, let's do these women's circles and connect properly,
Mhm.
support one another. Even postpartum, it's just so important.
Yeah. Yes, it's happening. We are the generation. We are the ones that later on will be the wise women in our village, and our daughters and their daughters. Like, we are changing. We are changing the world right now. More and more women are waking up. So, thank you for opening that discussion up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for hearing my story.
If you had a first time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby, and she really wants to have an empowering and positive birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
Oh, I think just following on really from what we've just talked about, there's a huge element of trust that needs to be played with, um, and really understood. And that's just trust within yourself. You have to believe in yourself. Um, we've got ancestors thousands of years that have done this successfully, and you are here right now to prove that. And you need to just believe that you can do it. There has to be that a real trust within yourself, but also finding your village and finding women that you can truly speak to, and be heard and listened as well and supported. So yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Invest in your village, both physical and if it's not available physically, because everyone doesn't live where there's a lot of people that are like-minded, maybe they're far out in the countryside or whatever, then find it online. Like, that is one of the blessings that we do have in our modern days, that today you actually can connect with women all over the world that are soul sisters, truly. And I've had that experience the last 5 years through my own village and just the amazingness of connection on social media as well. So,
And how amazing for that, because there's so many women now having these beautiful, natural, positive, empowering experiences. And if it wasn't for social media and connecting with women in this way, it wouldn't be happening for a lot of people. So
yes, absolutely. Podcasts and social media are awakening women who might not. Yes.
love
Beautiful.
it.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for this conversation. It's been beautiful to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. It's been lovely being here.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as the Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.